Good evening. Okay, I've waited for the GSD time. It's 6:37, so we can start now. So I am here to welcome a creative powerhouse, spirited breaker of rules, and a vocal advocate of equality. That's how the jury praised Odile Decq in 2016 when she won the Jane Drew Prize for Women in Architecture. It's an extremely important prize. Previous winners, just to give you an idea, the previous winners just before her had been Grafton Architects, and just before that, Zaha Hadid. So it's a very important moment, and I like this advocate of equality. The jury also pointed out that a survey done just the year before in 2015, a worldwide survey of over 1,000 women revealed that 72% had experienced discrimination or harassment within architecture, within the profession of architecture. And the numbers are not going down, they're going up. The breaker of rules part, so we need an advocate. The breaker of rules part, it seems, started young, as a child even. This is the story I read. I read that when you told your father you wanted to be an architect, he said, "Non, c'est impossible." Right? He said, girls don't become architects. This patriarchal opposition, she would convert later into a more systematic resistance through architecture itself. If my calculation of the numbers are correct, Odile would have witnessed the events of May 1968, but as a preteen. No? Not even born, okay. But maybe then the consequences, the consequences of some of the May 1968 events were that the École des Beaux-Arts was dispersed in pedagogic units across Paris. She did attend UP6, the one in La Villette. And again, I get them mixed up, but some of them were so radical that they hardly held classes. I don't know if UP6 was one, Pedagogical Unit 6 was one of these. And subsequently, she studied urbanism at Sciences Po. But that's old history. It was really in London in the 1980s that she came to her own, let's say, in architecture. She founded her studio in 1978 in London at first, in Paris. And then by the 1990s, the work had exploded. And that's when Odile Decq became Odile Decq. For the work in the 90s, she won the Golden Lion in Venice in 1996. After the turn of the millennium, the projects got larger, the work got more diverse, it also got more international. She now has projects in China, in Italy, some of the recent projects. But the new millennium also produced a new desire, pedagogy. Odile founded her own international school in Lyon in 2007. It opened in 2014. It's experimental, it's transdisciplinary. I was with her this afternoon in a review, and we are getting some of that pedagogy here in that experimental pedagogy in her studio. The school is called Confluence, Confluence Institute for Innovation and Creative Strategies in Architecture. And the school, as I understand it, like the architect, aims to disrupt. Original, radical, rule-breaking. I witnessed it today, a generous advocate. We need more architects like her, and we welcome her.
Thanks a lot, Michael. What a generous presentation. So, yes. First of all, I have to say that I'm very glad to be in Harvard, in the GSD, because I'm experimenting, my first time teaching here, my first time lecturing here, so everything is first time for me. And I'm glad to do that. I find this atmosphere of this school very cool. you know? I love the atmosphere of this school. I don't know why, but you are very unique. It's such a privilege to learn and to be in such a space. This is fantastic, and the atmosphere is very nice. So thank you, Michael, to invite me to come. I'm very glad. So my title is Architecture Thinking. Why? Because as many people from some years now, I was talking before about design thinking. You know what is design thinking? Everybody was talking about design thinking. And so I was using that too. And after 2-3 years, I was thinking, why saying only design? Why not talking about architecture? Because I strongly believe that architecture is much more powerful than only design. Because if you think, because this is unique, architecture is really a unique field, a unique discipline, a culture on itself. And with architecture, we can help the world. We can, because we are problem solvers. We are people unique. Why? Because when you are facing a problem, a question in architecture, whatever the question is, we are to convoke all the disciplines. We are to convoke art, philosophy, history, architecture, geography, geology, sociology, whatever, regulation, everything. We have to convoke everything to understand the complexity and to work and to analyze this complex situation. And from that, we have to be able to make a proposal. First, to do a diagnosis and to make a proposal. And this proposal has to be able to work from the very little scale to the bigger one, to the larger one. And this is the unique attitude, the unique culture, the unique discipline which is able to do that. So because thanks to that, we are unique. When you are studying architecture, this is unique. And if we apply that, not only being architects, but if we apply that on many, many questions, many problems, we can help. We can make proposal. We can propose something for the world. And we have to speak about architecture thinking to re-implant architecture as a central core in the world, because this is so important. So first of all, I want to show you some installation, because I'm applying architecture to many things. So I do installation sometimes. So the first one that I want to show you is the one from 2004, that in Artist Space in New York, they asked me to come and to do something. And they said, you don't show architecture. You are not presenting project. I said, okay. So I install a little cabinet in that place, which was a little corner in the space, where in that cabinet, I don't like that. Okay, I prefer that. So in that cabinet, the floor is not flat, it's not horizontal. You have to enter with a ramp, and the floor continues in the ramp. The cabinet itself has walls, but the walls are not vertical. They are all oblique. Never vertical and not regular. Some are painted in white, some are covered with mirrors. As soon as you enter in it, on the one covered by painting, I projected images of my project, but it's not only architecture. And because of the reflection into the mirror, you discover new spaces. The space is changing. The perception of the space is absolutely perturbed. So the space that you see in between these two parts, the two sides of the image, is not existing. It's the reflection of something else, which is in front on your back. And because you were on an oblique surface, you don't precisely know where is the limit between the floor, the wall, the different walls in between them. So I call that in 2004 virtual space, but in real, because you don't know what is this space and how it is. And I like to play with that ambiguity of perception of the space. In 2007, I was renovating an art gallery close to my office, and the man who is the owner of the gallery told me that I will be the first exhibiting in the gallery. I said, I'm not an artist, I'm an architect. He said, okay, but you will be the first one. So I remembered at this time the little sketch that I was doing to the people in my office to explain what I call dynamic equilibrium. Equilibrium could be reached with two columns and a beam. It's easy, it's simple, it's stable. But I like when something is unstable, looks as unstable. So when you have just one column, you have to estimate how to make the equilibrium between two strengths, two forces. So we built that with two balloons. One is a balloon of air, 2 meters diameter, and the other one is a balloon of, it's just a ball of a bubble in aluminum filled with sand. And in between them, the beam that you see is 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters, that is 6 meters long. And the column is 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters, one above the other, without fixation. So we had to calculate with our engineers the precise position of this point where we install the beam on the column. And we had to fill at the end the sand, grain by grain, to reach the equilibrium. And when you were to feel the instability of this equilibrium, by walking into the space, because of the balloon of air is filling the space, when you are walking on the B-side, the air is moving, so the balloon is moving a little bit. And you feel that this stability is nearly unstable. And I like this idea of being always unstable, always in movement. Like that. In France, we have a garden festival every year, and there are thematics. And in 2009, they announced the thematic of colors. And somebody in my office said, why not proposing a black garden? I said, okay, why not a black garden? So we didn't propose a black garden, we did a black installation, and we have been chosen. We have been selected. And we built it with sheets of glass, black glass, and filling the floor with powder, tire powder, very thick, 15 centimeters thickness, and in the middle a little surface of water on a black surface, to have a silencious garden. Because the thematic of the garden, as I said, of the festival was colors, so everybody all around were using multiple colors everywhere. It was very noisy of colors. And I wanted that in my garden, everybody was silencious. So because of this tire powder on the floor, when you come in, all the sound is absorbed. If you come with somebody, you want to talk to him or her, and you can't listen because all the sound was absorbed by the floor. And so this is a very simple installation, but thanks to the sun, the impression, it changes of perception because of the reflection, because of the reflection in between them, of the reflections of the trees, etc. So it was a place for silence and reflection. In SCI-Arch, in 2011, they asked me to do something in the exhibition room. And when architects usually build an object, I created a new space. And the space is very simple, 4 triangles equilateral. But the walls are not vertical. Everything of the inside is covered with mirrors. The space to pass, the passage between the spaces is not at the same place. So when you come in, you see it from above. When you come in, you see the object which is inclined, and inside, you don't perceive what is the space. You can't understand the space because, again, of the reflection. You don't know where are the limit between the walls, the floor. Is it a door, a passage, or is it just a reflection of another one? Where are the passage? So you play, you enjoy being there because you have to find your own way, and you don't understand what is the size, the space, the form of the space. And I love to play with that, as I said before. And in Milan, every year in the furniture fair, they ask in a university in the garden to architects, artists, and designers to do something with a factory. And they asked me to work with a factory of ceramic, and they wanted to propose ceramic which were 3 meters long and 1 meter wide, but only with 3 millimeters thickness. And they wanted me, they were thinking that I will show that as a floor and walls, etc. But I wanted to express the thickness, the extreme thickness of the ceramic by sending them up, crossing steel to maintain them vertical, to build like a cube, but cutting the cube with like a balloon passing through, to be able to come in and to walk on the edge of the ceramic, which is 3 millimeters thin. So architecture, because I do architecture also. So first, macro, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Rome, that I won in 2000 and finished and delivered in 2010. So this is it? Okay. So we are here. This is the extension of this part, which was just renovated, and these two old buildings with a courtyard. And this site is 3,000 square meters of footprint. We are in between two streets, at the corner of two streets, and there were an entrance here, and we have to create a new entrance here. So I decided to cover all the site with a roof that fill all the site, to create a new entrance here at this corner, to install the main exhibition room of 1,000 square meters at the corner, simple, to have in the middle a foyer, to have in the middle of the foyer the auditorium, above the auditorium a glass surface with a fountain. It's a fountain because it's water running on it, to leave a little bit of a hole into this ceiling with a garden, with trees, and to maintain what I was asked to maintain, this structure with a roof. So we are at the corner of the two streets, and this is the new entrance. And the glass box here is a cafe, because we are in Rome, and in Rome, in every street, there are cafes, and you go to drink coffees everywhere. So I wanted to have the coffee in the street. There is no coffee at the moment. So the entrance is to come into the cafe. The glass box is suspended to the existing facade that I had to keep on the both sides. And to come in, you have to pass under the cafe without columns. The box is flying above. And you have to cross the little garden with the trees going very fast to the roof to enter into the foyer. And the foyer is black. Everything inside is black. It's the first time that I use black in one of my buildings. I know that everybody believes that I build in black, but this is my first building in black. And if you look carefully about the floor is basalt. And basalt is a stone which is used in the pavement in Rome. So the city is coming into, this is back. I want to go back, but I don't know how to go back. There is no way to go back. Doesn't matter. So this is, I have to do no mistake. So the floor is the continuity of the street. So this is a public space, internal public space, which is running everywhere. And in the middle of that, we have the auditorium. But the new part of the museum is installed between two surfaces. The surfaces of the floor, of the foyer, which is internal public space, and the surfaces which is above the external public space. And in between, we have another layer, which is this surface, which is a promenade at mid-level into the foyer. Passerelles that helps to go, that drive you to go above the auditorium, and with the fountain above, and with the water running on it. And the auditorium is non-regular shaped, specially shaped irregular, to be able to give the impression that it's a little bit unstable, and digging the floor down to install lighting. And the last director installed mattress underneath with little videos screen here, and the kids were lying under the auditorium to watch the videos collection under the auditorium. So, and the auditorium is painted in red outside, and you can enter in it with using this ramp, and inside everything is red. This is the heart of the place where you gather, the place where you meet, the place where you discuss about video, about cinema, about art. And the city asked me at one point during the development of the project if I wanted to design everything. And we decided to design everything, including the seats, including the lighting system, so it's a global, total project. And the main exhibition room that I told you, this is 1,000 square meters. And in the brief, which was very little, they asked for different height in the space because they didn't know at the beginning that it will have been a contemporary art museum. They were thinking of having performances, to having theater, to having dance, ballet, etc. So they asked for different height. So it goes from places where you have 11 meters high to, on this side, 7 meters high. And in between, you have this passerelle, which is coming from the foyer, traveling along the wall, going up to the terrace. So this is a possibility to visit and to exhibit, to look at and to watch the exhibition which is down from this passerelle. It's another layer of promenade under the structure, which is quite heavy because I didn't want to have any columns in the museum. This is just a flying roof, as I said, supported by the wall in between the foyer and the exhibition room and the perimetral walls. Above, this is a huge space. This is a place, a square, a public square, because you can come from the former entrance, cross the courtyard, take a ramp, come here, travel this space, take a stair somewhere there and go back to the street. So you can travel the museum above. That means that this place becomes a public square for the surrounding, the area. And this is more than a public space, because there is a fountain, and there is a restaurant and another cafe here with a terrace. So this is a place where you can stay, as everywhere in the square in Rome, sitting outside in front of the restaurant, in front of a fountain. And we designed the lamps for the terrace also. And the cafe is multicolorful, so I don't use only black. This is multicolorful for the cafe. And by having the cafe at the mid-level and the terrace above with the restaurant, that means that the floor down is at the level of the usual entrance of every building. So the floor is the museum, the entrance museum is at the level of the entrance of every building around. But the cafe is in the street, but it's at the mid-level of the building. So the people from the first floor and the second floor and the third floor are at the level of the cafe. And the people who are living above are at the level of the public square above. So everybody is taking in account the spaces of the museum in front of them. Toilets. I love to design toilets. Because this is the only space in a building where you don't have regulation. Think about that. So you can experiment, you can play with toilets, with the space of a toilet. So my toilets in the museum are like a container covered by stainless steel mirror outside and inside, installed under the whole structure. In the middle of the space, you have this huge space, and at the extremity of both sides, we have mirrors. So the space is repeatedly, infinitely into these mirrors. And I did this experiment of space in reference to a movie by Jacques Tati, Playtime. And in Playtime, that Jacques Tati did in the 60s, mid-60s, he was expressing the ultra-modernity of the cities which were coming. And he did a movie where everything in the city is smooth, flat, bright, no asperity, no rugosity. And the main character, who is played by Jacques Tati, is walking into the city, and at one point, at the beginning, he enters into an offices building, and he is wearing leather soles under his shoes. And because he is wearing leather soles, and he is walking on a steel floor, it makes noise, click, clack, click, clack. And I think, okay, this is nice for playing with that. So I designed everything in steel. So the floors, the walls, and the ceiling are in stainless steel mirror. And inside, and the infinitely space into the mirrors. In the middle of the space, there is this object, which is a parallelepiped, white, and in glass. And above it, there is a kind of a landscape in depression. This is the only place where you can wash your hands, but you don't know how to do it. So you have to go there, and you start to make dancing your hands above. And as soon as you cross an infrared ray, the cubes the volume becomes red, and the water is coming up. And if you make dancing your hands at the corner, the dryer is coming up too. So you play yourself you become actors in the toilets when you are going to my toilets in the museum. Everybody is smiling when they get out. So I love to design toilets. So in Paris, I received a call once when I was in a weekend from somebody who won the management of a new restaurant in the Opéra Garnier, which was where there were never have been a restaurant. to do a restaurant under this cupola, which was an open space where the horse carriages were coming in before. And after that, it has been a deposit, a storage, etc. It has been absolutely in despair. So they wanted to establish a restaurant there. And I discovered that as soon as he told me that, okay, he wants to work with me, he had a recommendation from the Ministry of Culture because this is it is the more protective historical monument in France because it has been untouched since Charles Garnier did it in the middle of the 19th century. And Charles Garnier not only did the building, but he designed the facade of the buildings all around. So this is a public space protected and a museum and a building protected. So I had to, for enclosing the space, I had to create a facade with a space which was open to the outside. And it was forbidden to create a facade because the Minister of Culture said, don't put glass here because you will do a facade with arches or with columns that Charles Garnier didn't do. I said, okay. So I had to create a new floor because the space was not big enough. And they told me, don't create a floor because Charles Garnier didn't do. Okay, Charles Garnier didn't do, but I have to do it. So, the only place, and as they said, you can't touch the columns, you can't touch the cupola, you can't touch the wall, you can only touch the floor. Okay. So I started by doing, I have to close, so I started by doing this sinuous line behind the columns. Because I know how to work with glass, I was thinking that by creating volumes of sheets of glass, sinuous, they will be self-stable and anchor into the floor, they could be self-stable. And if I use a very clear glass, they will not see that they will see that there is no facade. Okay, so, and it was agreed. After that, I had to create a mezzanine. So I continued to sinus the lines, and this without touching the columns, without touching the walls. And the position of this line was a long negotiation between me and the National Commission for Historical Monument, because they wanted that I go back, because they wanted that people coming into the restaurant will see that they are entering into the cupola because they will see the center of the cupola. So this line has been a negotiation. At the end, they agree, and it's like that. So this is sheets of glass coming up, undulating, coming up to until 6 meters high at the height of the cornice, and another sheets of glass above. And in between them, to maintain them on place, this little piece of steel. Inside, the mezzanine is built in steel structure, covered or surrounding by molded plaster. And when doing, and that I have to push back my columns close to the other columns without touching them, because they didn't want that I have any columns in the middle of the cupola. So that means that this part of the mezzanine is in cantilever of 10 meters. And by doing that system of construction, I did exactly as Charles Garnier, because Charles Garnier did the project by winning a competition in 1950. And he was 35 years old when he won this competition. And he was modern for his time. So he decided to build the structure in steel. So what you look at, stone columns, is a steel structure surrounding by stones, and in between there are the shaft for the ventilation and heating system. So I did exactly the same. A steel structure surrounding by, I don't know how to go back, sorry. So, surrounding by molded plaster with everything technical inside, and having that turning and twisting with this molding plaster, with acoustic plaster, etc., different kind of plaster to make it absorbing because of the mineralization of the space, the floor, the walls, etc. I wanted to have an absorbing system. And in the back, there is a lounge with a long sinuous bench, or sofa if you want, with the doors coming to the foyer of the opera directly. And underneath is like being under an animal, a very strange animal. Everything is red and white. And the lighting system, the lighting devices are in the pocket, in the legs of the animal, because I didn't want to look at and to see any technical device in the building, because they were not seen from Charles Garnier. And everything in the mezzanine is red. The seats, the table, and the benches, and the sofas. there are mirrors to enhance the impression of space. And if you look carefully about the height, the top of the glass, it has been cut depending on the cupola. And every sheet of glass is different. The sinus, the curve is different, and the cut is different at the end. So, and this is not anchored into the stone, because between the glass and the stone, there are 4 centimeters of silicone joints. I did also another museum in France, in Rennes, in Bretagne, and it's in a park, a new park, in a new development area, where there were before this piece of art. And this piece of art is the unique 3-dimensional piece of art of an artist called Aurélie Nemours, a French artist, it is a unique 3-dimensional piece. And she is working only on numbers, and this piece is on number 9. Because every stone is 4 meters and a half height. The section is 72 centimeters by 81, and the angle of the position of the square, because it's a 72 stones, is at the specific angle of 9. And she gave regulation to the architecture. So usually this is architects who give regulation on architecture, but this is an artist who gave constraints. She said that she wants to have a silencious facade for the museum, and she wanted not to light her piece from the museum, from the building. So I respect what she asked, and I decided to have a silencious black facade with 2 materials, because this one is above, in front of the main exhibition room, and down this is a lobby, the foyer. But the height of the cut between the 2 materials is exactly the same height as the stones. And what you see as gray is black stainless steel mirrored. So because it's mirrored, it reflects and it plays with the sky. So it changes colors all the time. Down, this is gray, dark gray glass. And because it's dark gray, you perceive it black in the day. This is how it's built. So this is a steel construction with a cantilever with a big structure of the main exhibition room attached to the back side, which is a concrete block, black concrete. But this is black concrete, so that means that when it's dry weather, it's gray. When it's humid weather, it's black. So this building is a monolith, black monolith, with 3 kinds of blacks that are changing depending on the weather. So this is the entrance is here. You don't see it. Doesn't matter. No, everybody knows. And so this black monolith is cut in the middle, like that. And I try to find a space into that black monolith by creating that. By cutting the building, creating a big atrium from the roof to the storage 8 meters below, and having the auditorium at the entrance, but only the back of the auditorium. So when you enter, you see the light, you are full of light, but you can't go into the space. For going there, so to start traveling the museum, you have to go back to the facade and start to climb the steps. The steps all along the facade, in between the auditorium and the facade. That is transparent, and you are referring to the piece of art which is outside. You go to the foyer, to the cafe at the beginning, open to the park, and on the back of the cafe, you can enter the space. And you start by climbing some steps. Sometimes it's a ramp, and sometimes it's a stair, with sheets of steel anchored into the concrete, just that. And with a parapet which is quite heavy on the handrails to make people not having vertigo and being protected, and the glass suspended underneath. And you climb. And we climb 30 meters high for this space. The exhibition rooms are very simple because this is places for artists, so this is not a place where architects can express themselves. I just frame the park outside and going to the top. So the void is 30 meters high, open at the end to the west, so sometimes the sun is coming in. And toilets, again. Black and mirror this time. So this is just a sinuous mirror in between the basin, the wash basin for the men and women, when you go to wash your hands, you look at you in a curved or in the reverse of a curve, so you never look at yourself as you are, because you are thicker or thinner, never your size. And they find that at the beginning very violent, and they say, no, this is just for people being actors. And in the evening, the proportion inverse, so the top becomes dark, the bottom becomes lighted, and we lighted the auditorium until it becomes dark and totally black. In Lyon, we have developed and won a competition in 2005 and built in 2014, and we are with the peninsula with the Confluence. And this is the old harbor of the city, with these cranes still there. And at the end of the peninsula, I won the position of this building. And these two buildings, maybe you heard about this building. This is the Musée des Confluences by Copy Blau, Volprix. And this is 2,000 square meters of exhibition and a huge, huge, huge space inside for the entrance lobby. My little building, because in comparison to him it's very little, is 8,000 square meters. But it's more compact. And this building was supposed to be a parallelepiped. And I decided not to do a parallelepiped, to do a parallelepiped, but to shift the top part of the parallelepiped above the riverbank. Shifting why? Because I wanted to have, this is the riverbank, and this is a building in cantilever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 floors in cantilever above the riverbank. And in the middle, I had an atrium, so I shifted the atrium, and the atrium is passing above. To build that building, we built at the beginning 3 pylons, a cross of beams, a perimetral beams, and we hang everything. So we built from the top to the bottom, at the inverse, like that. And at the end, this is a building in cantilever, above the river, above the bank of the river. And this is 25 meters of cantilever. And on the facade, what you see is a picture, it's a photo. It's an artist's piece. Because we have been asked for the competition to work with an artist. And I decided to work with Felice Varini, who is a Swiss artist living in Paris. And this artist is working on the question of perspective point of view. And he told me when I came to him and I said, Felice, I have a building that my proposal is very simple. This is a parallelepiped. Can you transform the perception of my building? And he said, answer to me immediately, don't give an order to an artist. I don't receive order. I said, okay. You do as you want, Felice. You come back when you want. So he came back to me some weeks later or some days later, I don't remember. And he said, okay, architecture is very arrogant because when architecture is installed on a landscape or cityscape, it erases the landscape which was there before. So I want to replace the landscape on your building to erase the architecture, but in black and white. So he took virtually pictures on the top of the building, on the 4th direction, and we reapplied the photos of the scenery which was on the back, on the 4th direction, on the facade. So you see that the cantilever has been shifted, shifted the auditorium, and so that when you come under the building, you see that there is a glass ceiling, and you look through the building. It's like looking through the building in the atrium, looking under the dress of the building, or the shirt. I know that I can't say that in America, excuse me, in States. Excuse me, I can't say that. But I'm a woman, so I can say that. Okay. So, and inside, the space are very big at the ground floor because it's an events place, because it's a company who is doing events everywhere, managing the big events of the world, the World Cup, the Olympic Games, etc. So this is a very huge company, and they wanted to organize events, so the entrance is very big. And above, the steel structure is very present. This is like a kind of a very strong structure, but everything, all the floors around, all the open spaces of offices are open to the center, and they can communicate. The spaces are sometimes open spaces, sometimes closed, with glass facade, glass partition, so everything is transparent. and like that. And because we are in an offices building, I had to face two problems, because I didn't want to keep the full ceiling, because if I had to keep to transfer the energy of the day into the slab, the concrete slab, and when you have a full ceiling, you can't do it. You have to keep the false floor, because you have to have all the connection for the offices, but the full ceiling, you can take it out. And you have to reorganize the system of the shaft very precisely. But after that, I have to face two problems: the question of acoustic and the question of the lighting. I can find devices for acoustic panel or devices for lighting. And I was thinking, why not combining both? And I did a sketch of an object, which is that I call a petal, which is an acoustic panel with lighting underneath. And it absorbs the sound from the bottom and from the top. So my toilets in Lyon are in red. Okay, this is just the toilet. And in China, again, I won a competition because everything is by competition. It's a very interesting site, 1 hour by driving from Nanjing. And it's a place where they discover the bones of the first Homo erectus, the man of Nanjing, and into the cave of one of the cave into the mountain. So I went to the site, I visited the cave, and it's very moving when you are walking on the ground in a cave or in a grot where they found the bones of the Homo erectus, because you think that you are walking on the same path than the Homo erectus. And so the site was so big that they said that we can install the building where you wanted. So I decided to use the mountain as bringing my museum, because this is for the man of Nanjing who was living there. So I wanted to bring back the museum from the mountain by playing with the lines of the site of the mountain, lifting them, leaving them down, going to a model in papers for the museum, which is like that. And this is reconstructing or rebuilding, in a way, the curved line of the site, but in another way. And having the possibility to go up as a landscape onto the roof, and inserting the museum into the landscape. Rebuilding the lines with stones on the facade, recreating the lines on the landscape in the garden, and having in the middle, somewhere in the space, not in the middle, in the entrance, the foyer, which is an atrium, because I wanted again to make people traveling into the museum, but it's a 20,000 square meters of museum with a program which was very light. So I didn't know precisely what they wanted to have, but I know that they will have exhibition on both sides of the atrium. And I know that it will have been a lot of people, not only thousands of people, but maybe millions of people. So I wanted to play with the possibility for people to travel. So I decided to create an atrium, which is an irregular shape, a form, and to make it sliding from floor to floor, having escalators in between and not at the same place, to make people climbing to a floor, turning around the atrium to take the second one, etc., and turning, to discover what is exhibited on both sides and to choose where to go to visit. Climbing the space like that, and to the top. In Paris, we had before a very huge warehouse of 600 meters long in the north of Paris, inside Paris in the north. And it has been built in the 60s. The city of Paris bought it in 2009, at the beginning of the 2000, and decided to transform it as a kind of a new area, new quartier of Paris. So they did a competition, and Omar won the competition. And they, after that, chose architects to build above the building, because they discovered when they studied the buildings that the structure was strong enough that they can build 6 floors above. So they chose architects for building housing above the building. They cut the building to let the tramway passing, the new tramway passing through. Continuing by housing, 2 buildings of offices, my building for incubator, startup incubators, and cutting the building there, organizing a competition that Kengo Kuma won for sport facilities and schools. So this is a huge building of 600 meters long with multi-story facilities and commercial center into the whole structure, 2 floors of car park underneath that they built. And my building is an incubator for startups, so I decided not to have a normal facade for offices, just to make bubbles. And on the south facade, they are white. On the north facade, they are black. And in between, on my east facade, they are black and white. So as soon as I did that for the facade, I decided that the building will be only black and white, except some bubbles in red. Why not? So that means when you enter, this is the entrance, black and white. Above, there is a flying bubble for meeting rooms. At the back, there is the same, another meeting room, bubble, red, black and white. You can enter into the bubble like that, with a passerelle, and you enter into the bubble, where you can sit along this table, which is not a normal shape, but you can sit by 2, by 3, by 4, by 10 at the end if you want, but you are always as you want. We designed the carpet also with bubbles, etc. And on the lift floors, when you arrive at when you take a lift, you have black and white, and you push the button, and there is one black or one white which is coming. We never know. At the first floor, you have these big meeting rooms and conference rooms, red again. At some floors, and many floors, you have this convivial space, that they call convivial space, where we design the furniture, to have places where people can rent a seat or rent the floor to sit and to work, like a co-working and informal spaces for working. And on the top, when you have the bubbles, this is fantastic because the view over Paris is fantastic. At this moment, we are starting the construction of a tower in Barcelona that we won in 2015. So we are at the end of Diagonal, close to the sea, and we are precisely there. Here, this is the tower for Telefonica, for the telephone company, and this was a tower until there. It was a concrete block, not finished, for 10 years, 12 years. And an American and an international fund bought it and did a competition to transform it in a high-class level, high-level class, I don't know how we say that, for residential. And we have to destroy a part which is on the back, rebuild more floors above, so reinforce the structure to build floors above, create balconies in cantilever on both sides. So this is a huge structure construction at the beginning to create that tower. With a floor which is 10 meters high for the lobby and the restaurant, and using again this curved facade on the back of the columns which are existing. And by chance, the company who was doing the curved facade for the opera is based in Barcelona, so we work with them, we discuss with them, and I asked them until which height we can go, and they said 9 meters. I said, okay, we will do 9 meters this time. So each piece of glass will be 9 meters with a specific curves, etc. Playing with curve, with glass is nice. On the back, this is more thin, and on the top there is a swimming pool that you can swim with, looking at the sea at 100 meters high. And some red balconies. No black, red balconies. I did, sometimes very little project. So I have been asked by an art collector who is owning this, how can I go back? It's stupid, it doesn't work. Thank you. Okay, I'm stupid. So she's living here. Sorry, I have to keep the micro. She's living here in this little castle above Grenoble in the Alps. And here there is a Gulf of Grenoble, and this is a slope. And she wanted to have an artist residence at this place into the trees. I went there and I discovered that the landscape in front of, on this side, is absolutely amazing. This is the Alps chains and the valley of Grenoble. And, but I wanted to protect her from the place, from the artist in residence, not to disturb her. So I decided to do a silencious black block, all in wood. So I decided, because we are in the Alps, to build in wood. So this is a wood block, structure and outside, and covered with black bitumes, which to protect it. And this black block, which is regular on the top, is twisted when it goes down to have possibilities for the sun to come from different directions without overlooking to the castle above. To have a kind of a twisted block like that, with a workshop for the artist, which is anchored into the fortification to protect the wall which is supporting the garden above, and the belvedere above, which is overlooking the landscape. So this is a black house, and I did a white house. So this one, the first one was in wood, this was all in glass. It's in Brittany, for a man who was an Englishman and a couple who had the illness in his eyes and wanted to have something absolutely bright with a lot of maximum of light inside the house. And because he's an industrial working with glass and steel, he wanted to build that in glass. So we did a total glass house. Everything is in glass, this parallelepiped inclined, with white glass, with double glass together, with a foam inside. It's not transparent, it's translucent, and the black volumes are the kitchen and the bathrooms. Everything inside is in glass, instead even the staircase. And we have so little windows, transparent, sometimes. But everything is inclined a little bit particular. And this one, I didn't design it. This is not my design. I have been called by the owner of this house, who inherited from this house, a brother and a sister, that house has been built in between the mid-60s to the mid-70s by two men, the architect and the owner. And they built that by themselves, by hand. This is a steel structure, curved, where they projected on it concrete, polished by hand. And the back, they projected insulation and plaster, polished again. So it was it took a long time. And this is at the end, 600 square meters of bubbles. And they wanted to renovate it, so I renovated and waterproofing the outside and renovated everything inside by colors. So this is, it's amazing, this house. I enjoy to do that. It was really funny for me. And living there, sleeping in the bed, a round bed in the round bubble is fantastic, believe me. So the first part that we renovated was the living room. So we did white at the beginning, and I renovated the cushions only. So starting by, because it was the cushions were like that, so we rebuilt them, and I started by playing with the colors, because it was 60s and 70s, and I was thinking about pop art. So it was multicolorful. We started multicolorful, and after that we did, this is one of the bathroom, can you imagine? I took a bath in that bathroom, this is fantastic. Look at that. And we did pink, black, more pink, sometimes mandarin, sometimes orange, depending on the room, sometimes more, again, pink. Look at that. I dream of having drawn that. I didn't design that. When I discovered that, I was, my God, this is so amazing to do that. The corridor between outside and inside. And at the end, the last room that we renovated, we decided, because we did, after we did that in 5 years, a campaign every year of renovating part of the house, playing with colors, etc. So thematics of the rooms were one color, but playing on different layers of these colors. At the end, and we did colors by colors. At the end, for the last room, and when I speak about a room, this is a bedroom, two bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen, and a bathroom. So they are kind of apartments because the owner had 2 kids, and every kid had an apartment, and they are all connected. This is why at the end it was 600 square meters. So at the end, I did not have ideas for a new color. I said to the owner, maybe we can use all of them together, and we played with all the colors at the same time, like that. Creating the furniture sometimes. So it was fun. And I said that after the first year, I said to the owner, I think that the statement of the house and the colors is too much is never enough. This book by Lapidus with the title, Too Much is Never Enough. And I like to think that too much is never enough. This is a good statement for students in architecture. Too much is never enough. No, it's not finished. So I do design. So I won a competition for the UNESCO headquarters for renovating the phone box. So this building has been done in Paris in the 50s. And I won the competition for the phone box. And as soon as I won the competition for the phone box, the director told me, but in the conference hall, which is 700 square meters, we need furniture. Can you propose us something? I said, can I design? They said, yes. So because I was dreaming of designing furniture, but okay. So I first starting by doing the counter. And because it was from the 50s, this building, I said, okay, 50s were the heroic time of plastic, so I will do the counter in plastic. So I went to a little shipyard 1 hour from Paris, and we did together the shape. We shaped the counter, which is 11 meters long, in plastic. And the color of this object, the orange, is coming from a fresco on the back, which is by Picasso, 50 square meters of fresco by Picasso in this hall. Because this building, which has been done by Marcel Breuer and Pierluigi Nervi as the engineer, was in the 50s. And in the 50s at this time, they were doing what they call the synthesis of art. So when they were building an official building, they were also asking to the artists of the time to propose a piece of art. So they had a huge collection of the artists of the 50s. So they have a fresco by Picasso. And we choose the orange in this fresco. And they wanted to have seats. So I designed for my first time seats, and I wanted to do it. So I was thinking that how can I deal with a collection of seats in that huge hall? And I was thinking back to the sofas by Pierre Paulin, this French designer who was from the 50s and who died some years ago. And he did at this time what he called a snake, an articulated sofa that in the main hall, the big hall, they were buying because it was very easy to make it like a snake. So I wanted to rebuild a snake, but I wanted to design seats. So I started by doing an armchair with a seat and a back. And after that, I did a confidant. That means a two-seat with the back which is twisted. And you can sit on both sides. And a canapé with the back and the seat which are connected. And if you look carefully, the seats, the side, are all the same. So you can make them, and you can combine them as you want. And you can make the snake thanks to the confidant. And the leather color has been chosen thanks to a tapestry by Le Corbusier in the same hall. And they wanted to have a table, so I did a plastic table for 3 meters long with 70 centimeters wide and little legs, and the structure underneath is by the folds. And they needed to have a paper basket, so I folded aluminium, polished in a certain way to confuse the perception of these folds, and an ashtray. After that, an art gallery asked me to do a place for storage in this gallery. So I proposed this box, which is normal, parallelepipedic, but we can open it like that by sliding a part or lifting the other part. And the lamp that I did for the macro in Rome. And I continued to work with Luce Plan, and I did this pendant lamp, which is soleil noir, because this is using with the disc underneath the indirect lighting by using the underneath surface to be the reflector of the lighting. And Alice came to me once and asked me for a tray. And I was thinking, a tray? What can I do for a tray, with a tray? So I was thinking, a rectangle, a round, or a square? I said, okay, rectangle, I can play with more with that. So I designed two rectangles, and shifting one of the other, each of them, and lifting the sides. And because the two rectangles have been shifting, the side is not regular. So you can't take my tray in the middle of the side, as usual, to bring it. You have to take it like that. And it's to bring it like that. It's not nice. And so, I call it Alice because it's Alice in Wonderland. What you see is not what you look is not what you see, or what you see is not what you look, because it seems not to be flat, and it's absolutely flat. And I did a fruit basket to make the fruit outside, going outside. And, oh no, my God, what happens? I repeat that, no. And in Ganju, they asked for 15 designers to propose a lamp, so I proposed a stone with the light underneath. And I did a knife. I have a friend who is a designer, a French designer, who is the artistic director of a knife factory. And he called me once and he said, Odile, do you want to design a knife? I said, a knife, why not? And he said, it's a folding knife. I said, oh, I love folding knives. Because men usually love folding knives, because everybody has a knife in his pocket, and this is a folding knife. But more of that, the folding knife is a knife for the workers. And every kind of company, of worker, has a specific knife. So I was thinking, okay, but this is for table, okay. But I was thinking after that, how to design a knife when you are an architect, you are doing buildings, and you have to do a little object. So I did a model with my hand with plaster. And after that, I passed my model through the hands in the office to check if everybody was comfortable with that. We did the model of the blade, so it was a little object like that. And I brought to this man my model and said, this is my knife. He said, you did a model for a knife? I said, yes, because I did not know how to design a knife, you know. So I did a model, and they built it, and now it's sold. This is a very expensive knife. I'm sorry, because it's not a regular shape. And the gallery, where I talked at the beginning, the art gallery close to my office, when I renovated the gallery in 2007. And he has a dog. And he was living with the dog because the dog died this year. But in 2010, he was alive. And so he wanted to bring back the dog basket in the art gallery. And I said, no, a dog basket in an art gallery is impossible. This is ugly. I will design a basket for their dog. So we went to visit the dog, and we measured the dogs when he was standing up, lying, or sitting. And we did a molded aluminum object with a mattress inside that we asked somebody to sew for Victor. And Victor died this year, so the house is still there, but he's not here. So as soon as I did that, I did to this gallerist. So I can do that for men, from human to mices. And in 2013, he asked me for the mices, and I did that one. So if you have mices in your house, you can have my house for them. And do I talk to my school? Oh no, I'm tired. So maybe we stop there. No? Or you want to talk about that? We talk about the school? Okay. Okay, I have to drink. I have a glass. So this is a school. So why to do a school? Why to establish a new school in architecture? Because, as I said, what I think about architecture today as a culture and a discipline to help people and to help the world, we have to rethink the pedagogy and the way to teach to you, the young. There are some other students in the audience, but to the students. I talk to the students now. Because you are not as us. You are not listening how we are doing. You are not memorizing as we are memorizing. You are not concentrating as we are concentrated. Because you are the digital generation. And because of that, you are not the same. You are different. I don't compare. I don't say there is one which is better than the other one. You are not the same, and because of that, we have to change the way we teach, and you have been educated in architecture. And at the same time, we have to take in consideration that students today love to build, or love to fabricate, to do something with their hands or whatever. So to be able to understand the way between thinking, designing, and fabricating. And this is very important to understand this link, because this is the only way to do something, for helping again. And because with architecture, you can become architect, or you can become who you want. Because doing studies in architecture is educating yourself to understand who you are and who you want to become. Because if you think that, have you heard about this music group, music band, The Who? Yes, they were all architects. The Talking Heads were all architects. They were all meeting in the School of Architecture, and they were architects. If you think about Orhan Pamuk, the writer from Istanbul, he was studying architecture. If you think about, there are many, many people who are, if you think about Courrèges, the fashion designer, the French fashion, he was architects. So with architecture, you can do what you want. So you have to think about that. Architecture is more important than being an architect. And architecture is really the core of the way of thinking and helping the world. And because of that, this is why I think that we have to change the way of educating. And I feel a bit of that in that school. This is why I like this school, and I find this school very cool, as I said at the beginning. Because I know that for you, it's normal to have a place for studying, a place for working when you are a student. In France, it doesn't exist in any school of architecture. So in my school, they have places for working. They have the key of the school, and they can come as you are doing there. But it's rare. It's not everywhere. In my school also, they have the key of the school, and they come when they want. They can go to the workshop down. They can use the machines. They can do what they want. But as soon as they are responsible, autonomous, and able to think and to create two things that they can help. And they are responsible mostly. At the same time, I think that today, because when you do inquiries about the young generation, you don't want to be salaries to some in a company. You want to be by yourself. So you want to become entrepreneur in a way. So we have to educate you, to help you to become entrepreneur in the world of tomorrow. Because we are in the 21st century. My generation, the generation of your teachers, we were very happy and very lucky because we were living in a world where the transformation was undergoing, and we just wanted to push the transformation of the world, to push it to go faster and further. At the end of the 20th century, everything has been broken. So the 21st century is to be invented. So I'm very jealous about yourself because you have to invent a century. And this century is your century because you will have been educated for being and living and working and doing what you want in that century. So I can't believe that the luck that you have to have a century to create, to invent. So first to think. So first to dream. The more important duty of a student today is to dream the world, to understand what is coming, and to be able to invent the world. Thank you. Yes, no problem. No problem.
So Odile has agreed to take some questions, comments. And we have others.
Yeah, I mean, it's like really great to hear you speak, and it's like really inspirational. I think that, we are in a different like generation now, and I feel like with digital technology right at our fingertips, it means that now like the ability for students to like directly concentrate on like craft and like the art of making is like way more imperative than I think it was in like your generation, which was about like the avant-garde and like questioning everything. And I think now this sort of like hardcore resurgence in like design and like the actual object making is like really important, and it's like powerfully demonstrated in your work. I don't have a question, of course, but I think that you know, the idea of movement in your architecture is like pretty clearly defined and represented. And I was thinking about like the ultimate movement architecture building, like the Guggenheim, and how it just like perfectly circulates the people. But it seemed like in your photos, it's not really about like the circulation of the people per se, so much as like the architecture itself taking on this movement. And so like I look at the main atrium space of that one museum with the sort of ellipse, white egg-shaped, and you went to like this very clear strategy of delineating the escalators as these big clunky objects, which I felt were sort of like climbing up the, you know, this sort of like curvaceous object. And I felt like that sort of dialectic relationship of things acting upon other things was like clear in your architecture. And yeah,
The question is?
I don't have a question. I just figured I'd say something. But okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, yeah, I have a question. So the school you're creating right now is really something brand new, especially seen from the French perspective. Could you talk a bit more about the school you're funding right now?
About what?
About everything about it. So just
Everything.
describe it.
You have to come.
And why is it new, especially in France? What is the new thing?
International. Teaching in English and French mixed, so everybody has to teach and to speak both languages. And but it's not only; it's also about the fact that there are no permanent teachers. Teachers are coming, and people, because I'm not there every day because I can't, and nobody is there. The students open the door when the teachers are coming. If I caricature the system, and they go to the airport or the train station to welcome them. They bring them at school because they know that they are coming because we tell them, and they receive them. They make them visiting the school, and after that they start to teach And this is not because people are coming from abroad or for somewhere else than the place. So we don't have just one course for 1 hour or 2 hours. We have just long period of teaching. So we have only what I call seminars and not courses because I said at the beginning that you are not memorizing as we were memorizing. So if we have a course on whatever the subject, 1 day for 2 hours, and it continues the week after. In the meantime, you have forgotten everything, so it's losing time. So I prefer to have 3 days of teaching on the same thematic, on the same history of architecture, construction, or whatever. And at the end, the students are memorizing something. And it asks also to the teachers to change their way of teaching because they can't do just a lecture for 3 days, during 3 days, so they have to invent new ways of approaching, discussing, debating, or making the students understanding what they are talking about, and they do it. And after that we have a workshop, which is 1 week or 10 days, and a long studio for the semester. But it's really another way of interacting with the students that maybe you have it here, I don't know, but we don't have it anywhere in Europe because I was teaching in many places and I never see that already. So we are doing that because we depend on, we look at how are the students today. And half of our students are from abroad, half are from France. And what else?
Hi, so earlier on in the talk, you distinguished architecture thinking from design thinking in general. I'm wondering, do you feel that there's a difference in the process when they're between architecture thinking and design thinking?
Because there is a process of design in architecture, but not only. This is why I said that we have to invoke, because we convoke more disciplines than only design, not only for the design. Because and this is why in my studio, I want that my students are doing research and they are able to think, to be able to construct, to build a way of thinking, a way of researching for thinking, taking a position, being engaged in a subject. Because if you are not engaged and if you don't take position, you will never take risk. And life is risky. You have to risk everything every day of your life is risking. And doing architecture is taking risk. Because you have to overpass the regulation. You have to try to do something more. You have to try to give more to your client. What your client is asking something, but you have to take the risk to give him more. And this is taking risk. But always in the taking care of the budget, taking care the normal things, budget, etc. But okay, and regulation. But sometimes you have to take the risk to go further. Otherwise, you only stay on your place and you don't leave. That's why I think that architecture is more powerful than design, only design.
At Confluence, is there a particular pedagogy or a previous experimental architecture school or pedagogical school of thought that you are inspired by there?
I was looking at, because it took for me 2 years to think about how to do it. And I was looking at different experiences in the world, and but not only from students, even from high school or little schools. And I was looking at Montessori, I was looking at Steiner, I was looking at some experiences in Finland that they are doing now. I was looking about the one close to Chicago with it's a school of art. Cranbrook, exactly. Because I went to Taiwan, and in Taiwan there were some teachers from Cranbrook who came 25 years ago in Taiwan, and because there were Taiwanese and some American and English, and they went and they established a school of design because it was forbidden for them to establish a school of architecture, and they were doing something absolutely as I like, something mixing everything. The students are free to choose what they want. They are bigger than what we are today, so maybe at the end my students will be free too. But for the moment they can't. And it was for me an example. And there are other experiences, because I heard that there are other people who are trying to, I don't remember the name now, but excuse me, after one day I'm a bit tired. But I was looking at many different experiences in the world to understand what I can do. Yeah.
Maybe one more, maybe the last question.
Thanks for sharing. My question is how much the French culture influenced your architecture? Because I think you design a lot of architecture around the world, like you mentioned about China. So I just wonder about the cultural root of France.
So I'm from France because I'm French. So I think that I have a kind of French roots. And but every time I go somewhere, I build for a place. So whatever the place is, and if it's in China, if it's in Italy, if it's in Spain, if it's maybe in the States, I look at the place and I design for the place. So that means, because it's not importing an object. It's not having an object which can travel and being established whatever you want. No, it's for the place. And I don't know. My roots are French, and I have some specificities, certainly, which are French, but I don't know which one. And I'm not with this neoclassical vision of French architecture with the entrance in the middle with symmetrical buildings, for example. I don't like that. So I'm always on the B side of that. I always try to do something in diagonal, because I like diagonal. I like to go on the other side and to turn around the objects. And because I was looking a lot about how in east of the world, you are entering into a building with sliding like that, not entering into by opening the door and inside. I love when the space is giving you the possibility to move and to walk and to be in movement. So and because I'm curious about everything, I'm inspired by everything, not only architecture. Architecture is not my only nourishment. I look at planes, cars, objects in the industry, what happens in the shops, what happens in the world, what is happening in the technology today, etc. I'm curious about everything. And I think that is the second quality of a student in architecture, being able to dream and being able to be curious all his or her life.
Odile, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you. Thank you.